um, order the meeting of the Water Policy Committee on January 21st at 10:31 a.m. And we'll start of the minutes. It looks like I'm the only one that that was here last year. So I am approving the minutes. I don't know if I have that authority, but I will. So we'll move on to. Oh.
Yes, Councilmember Bergan will also need a second vote, just because that's the quorum. So
even though, okay.
I know it's funny, but yes, if Councilmember Lawson was able to review the minutes and they looked okay, I would request that she would vote on it. Thank you.
Yes, I was able to review them and I do approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Lawson. Appreciate it. Okay, minutes are approved and we'll move on to consent items. Does anybody want to pull a consent item and get a presentation on construction change order, water supply, or grants? How about I'll have you give us an update on the water supply. Good idea.
We're all gonna cry.
I know.
I gotta go now.
Snow is coming this weekend, I'm told.
I'm happy to do that. Maybe I can join the meeting here and
thank you, John.
Show you some things. So, okay. Let's see if I can share. All right. Well, here's the bad news. This is these are the SNOTEL sites for the basins that we're in. So you've got these up here in the South Platte with my mouse in the South Platte Basin, Colorado Basin, Arkansas Basin. But you can see over here we have the basin totals for the snowpack just for these sites that we have. It's not the whole picture, but it's the ones where our snow collects. And so Arkansas, we're at 51%, Colorado 53, South Platte 38.
Ooh.
So hoping we're going to pick up some snow maybe this storm that's coming through this weekend. Should catch the edge of it and maybe get some much needed snow in the mountains there.
And just real quick, Councilmember Lawson, can you see the screen? I just want to make sure.
Yes, I can see the screen. And I do have a question once John is he's completed with the presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, and jump in anytime. So let's look at some other stuff. So these are some updates to this stuff that's in the report that I sent. So this is the picture as of January 15th, because when I put the report together, it's got to be 2 weeks prior to this meeting. So it's always a little bit outdated. So that picture's changed a little bit. We've got some drought developing or persisting in pretty much all of the state now. This is the latest picture of the from the U.S. Drought Monitor. You can see we've got 70% of the state currently in some sort of drought condition. And let's see here. Okay, this is the most recent temperature outlook. It's changed a little bit. It looks like more equal chances, more in the northeast than we had before. And then
And John, just for Councilmember Lawson's edification, since she may not be as familiar with these, equal chances means it could go either way. It's not saying that it will be neutral, but it could get hotter or it could get colder temperature wise. That's what equal chances means on this graph. And the other ones are more likely to be warmer.
And it's because of where we're situated with the mountains that we can't predict necessarily. Is that why?
It's harder to predict in Colorado because of a number of things. Yeah. Models have a harder time.
So Chair, I do have a question before we move forward, just a question. So with this is a normally very dry winter compared to, I mean, I know I've lived in Colorado since 78, and I know we used to have really bad winters when we first moved here, me and my parents and I. So if it continues to do this and we continue not to get the type of, snow that we are supposed to get in the mountains, what does that lead to in the end? Is it just, I mean, do we have water storage? And I'm sorry, I haven't been on the water committee in a long time. So if this is going to be a topic for the ongoing, we could talk about it later, but I was just curious about that with this particular prediction at this point in time.
It's a great question. We do have an agenda item today that will talk about our water shortage response plan. In the plan, what happens is when we don't have enough storage, and a majority of our storage is in the snowpack. So when we don't have enough bind storage, we will have to come to council and request drought restrictions.
Okay.
And then those restrictions are categorized in different stages. So right now we're in normal, which it would be, well, technically, I don't think we're in anything, but when the summer hits, or spring and summer, we would normally be in normal conditions, which is 3 days, or normal restrictions. 3 days a week watering is a normal year for us.
And that will be in the presentation later.
That'll be in the presentation later.
Okay.
But when it's bad, we have to come and request an increase in our restrictions. We've, in 2023 and 2013, we had to come and request stage 1 restrictions. That's where we go first, which is the main thing that does is 2 days a week outdoor watering. And we'll walk through that plan in this meeting.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I know we're addressing it in the presentation, just kind of wanted to ask about that in terms of, it is very dry and this is very kind of abnormal a little bit. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. Great question. Just not where we want to be. This is the precipitation outlook for the next 3 months, also updated mid-January.
Oh, that one got worse.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Not, so we're leaning below in basically the southern half of the state. And who knows in the white, right? That's where we're at there. Storage wise, this is related to what you were asking. We are, here's a good look at kind of a history. So this is the cumulative storage over the year for the last several years. Let me see if I can see that. It's on the bottom. So we just barely started 2026. So here's where we are now, coming out of where we ended up at the end of December over here. So you can see we've had worse years, we've had better years, but typically you're going to get in the wintertime, we're just drawing from storage to meet demand. There's no new water coming into the system until the spring. When our water rights kick in, the snow starts melting, we start collecting it again, and then the storage will accumulate over the summer, and then we'll start to use it again as the water rights run out in the fall. And so, you know, if you were to track this, if we had normal water usage through the spring, we would probably end up somewhere around, I don't know, 85,000 acre feet of water in storage. What it looks like if that trend continues, and no reason to think it wouldn't. Currently, we are at 59% of total storage. We have total storage in our reservoirs of 156,400 acre feet of water, and so we're at 59% of that, or about 63,000 acre feet of water now. So that's kind of the picture of where we're at, and
I think last year saved us, right? Was it last year or the year before?
last year was not fabulous either, but the
Oh,
year,
the year
yeah, so
before.
yeah, if we look
Yeah.
at the trend, so in 2024, we were starting in a better place, and we did hit pretty good. That's kind of peak. It's really hard to get all of your buckets full at the same time.
Yeah.
23 wasn't bad either. The bottom, this blue line here,
23
just for reference.
Started bad, right? 23 started really bad.
And then we had big storms.
Yeah.
And then we got big storm.
Yeah, that's the year you're thinking of. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a lot of rain. So a lot of things can happen. The snowpack wasn't necessarily super fabulous, but that spring we got a lot of rain. And that and demand was really low for a long period of time. And so that really helped. For reference, this bottom blue line is 2002. So you've been here since 78. So you've been through that. That was 2002 drought. And we all remember that was the first time we really started implementing big conservation measures and so on. But you can see we were using water, but in the spring, there was really no snow. So there was no runoff and we didn't yield any water. And so we just had a slight little bump there and then continued on down. So this kind of trend here, you'd expect to be a little bit better now with conservation measures we have in place and watering restrictions as we've already mentioned can be implemented. So that's kind of the picture.
All right. Thank you.
We are, and this shows up a little bit on the graphs also. You'll see when storage is being depleted, you'll see some kind of spikes in that data that was just there a second
With the
ago.
other graph, sorry.
So what we did in 2023, I didn't remember that many, but we went out and leased water from some other entities that we have agreements with to improve our situation. So the spikes aren't huge, but we are doing that again this year. We're getting out there and leasing some water that we typically wouldn't,
Right.
to try to improve the situation because the forecasts don't look good. And our storage isn't terrible in our reservoirs, but it's not great. And the snowpack is, as John just shared, really bad. And it's not forecasted to be much better. So you'll see some spikes show up on the system, that pink system capacity.
Yeah. Those
Curve
little,
over the next month or so. Those are coming pretty soon.
Okay.
The other thing, sorry, the other thing we didn't have in 2002 was the Prairie Waters Project.
Oh, right. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
So that will help as well.
Any other questions, Councilmember Lawson?
No questions on this. Chair, I would like to just ask if you could just give me an overview of the grants that the water department is applying for. I don't need a whole presentation, but just maybe what those grants are. Is that something that I could get a answer for in the consent items?
Yeah, Luce.
Yes, that we are applying for this year or that we have applied?
No, that you're applying for this year.
So far we're applying to the SIPA grant and the Water Smart Small Storage grant with the Bureau of Reclamation. And everything else, no notice of funding opportunities have been rolled out as of right now. We are looking at the Colorado Water Conservation Board. They have some watershed and watershed health and recreation grants that we're looking at. We have not picked a project yet, but we have some upcoming meetings. So hopefully we'll be able to apply for some of those in July.
Okay, thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
And one of the reasons Lou's asked about prior applications is we are still waiting for lead replacement funding. So we do have an application pending for a fairly large grant that we hope comes through.
We have a meeting about it next week too, so.
And Marshall, is that, sorry, Chair, just a question on that one. Is that that's the federal one? Is that the federal grant? Or is that the state grant?
It's through the state revolving fund.
Okay.
So it's managed by the state, but it is awarded through federal funding.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move to the Citizen Advisory Commission update. Bonnie?
Yes. Well, we will have there's 3 terms that are coming up in February, so next month. And 2 of the people have decided they don't want to continue on. Tom Coker has been with us for a very long time, and he's decided he doesn't want to continue on. He wants to just
literally
retire.
told me he's staying.
When did he tell you that?
I just had lunch with him yesterday. What's going on?
I don't know, but he sent me an email to the contrary. So if he wants to come back, that's an option. 'Cause
Well,
we
then
still have
maybe
an
he
open
didn't mention it
seat.
to me, but he literally a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, was recommending someone else and then said, no, I understand I can stay on. I'll stay on.
I did tell him he could stay on, and then he sent an email. I said, no, I'm good. So I can clarify with because we still have a seat open because John Dingus is the other one. And
Oh.
he has decided he does not want to continue on. He was filling the seat for somebody
That
else.
was so good.
Yes.
Right, that's too bad.
Yes. So we do have a new applicant. You may have heard of this person.
Steve Hungerford.
His name is Greg Baker.
Oh.
His name is Greg Baker. He is an applicant, and the commission did recommend an appointment of Greg Baker to fill one of the open seats.
That sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur. I have all kinds of things I think he would be great at doing. And Marcus Harper, he's seeking reappointment, and
Oh.
they would also like
Okay.
to seek to confirm him. So
Okay, so just 2.
there's 2 and so that would leave 1 opening seat. So if Tom truly is wanting to, I'll reach out to him. He didn't come to this month's CWAC,
Oh.
can you?
Yeah. So he originally was recommending Steve Hungerford, who was very interested. I think he put an application
I
in.
didn't get any other applications in.
He put it in. I
Boards and
don't,
commissions. I asked them ahead of the last meeting, which was last week. So I can check in with boards and commissions just to see if they have received.
supposedly he had put it in a
What's
month
his-
ago.
Steve?
Steve Hungerford,
Hungerford. Okay.
Huh.
Heritage Eagle Bend.
Yeah, which would be fantastic.
Yeah.
We did not see an application from Tom or Steve.
Okay.
So we'll follow up on our end. If
Yeah.
either of them are interested,
Uh-huh.
we can absolutely get them.
Well, it sounds like Tom is no longer interested, but I did speak to Steve Hungerford. He actually was putting me down as a reference on the application. So maybe when Tom then decided to stay, he then maybe didn't submit it through the,
Let me find out what's going on.
okay.
Okay, so you'll double check.
Yes, I
and
will.
then shoot us an email, I guess.
Yes.
Let us know what you find, and then
Otherwise are the 2 that, yeah, we can take those forward to study session.
Yes, Greg Baker and who was the other, Marcus?
Marcus Harper, yeah, and
Marcus
he's been serving for a
Yeah.
while now.
No, that is good with me. Councilmember Lawson, are you good with those 2 moving forward?
I'm good with those 2 moving forward.
Okay, great. And we'll check with Steve Hungerford's application. He would be good on just
Awesome.
know him, very thoughtful.
I like it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that report. And we'll move on to, oh, you're next.
It's
So on
still
the
me.
lead ordinance.
Still me. Hold on 1 second, I will do this. Hopefully it comes up the right thing. Okay, if you will recall, it was not long after I started here, so almost 2 years ago, we were one of the first in the state to put in an ordinance that would require the replacement of lead lines and also galvanized lines. And that was all hinging from the lead and copper rule revisions, the LCRR, which came out, and it's a requirement that we have it from a federal and state level, that we have to go and identify these lines and we have to replace them. So we've learned a lot, let's just say, since we've been out doing investigations. We have accomplished, I'm going to tell you exactly how many. We have had over 47 4,763 potholes is how many we have gone out and we have done in the last, no, I didn't lie. I didn't mean to lie. 5,325 is how many potholes we've done on the customer side. And we've learned a lot in the process of doing that to find out what kind of material they are. Now, just as a reminder, this is primarily Ward 1
Right.
and a little bit of Ward 3. So the vast majority of what we are finding are fortunately neither lead nor galvanized. The vast majority are copper. However, we have found about close to 2%, which is roughly 98 lead lines on the customer side. And there have been 896 galvanized lines that have been found. So as we've been going through and we've been doing this, we've first of all found additional records that have helped us to better understand what has been out in the system. And as a reminder, galvanized lines in and of themselves, if they have not had lead upstream of them, are not considered to be a human health risk. It is only if there has been lead that is upstream. And if there has ever been lead upstream or suspected lead upstream, where you just can't say whether or not there was lead upstream or not, the state and federal entities are calling that galvanized requiring replacement. So that means they are going to be treated like a lead line, and we have to remove them.
If there's lead.
If there is lead upstream. So if we can confirm that there was never lead upstream, they do not pose a human health risk, and therefore they as far as the state and federal regulators are concerned, they do not have to be replaced. So when we first did the ordinance, we had it in there that all galvanized had to be replaced. And now we have learned that actually we have found a number of records that are showing us that we don't necessarily have to replace a portion of them. So, and I'm skipping ahead. So this slide basically covers that. So we are proposing an ordinance update that would actually just refine our existing ordinance. And what we would do is we want to define the galvanized lines that do require replacement. So those are those lines that either we cannot say definitively that there never was lead upstream because we lack information and records, or that we know for a fact there never was lead upstream because we have records that validate that. So we are going to, we've updated it so that it says now galvanized requiring replacement are those that have to be replaced. There is a reason why we really want to do this, and it is because, first of all, there's not an additional health risk if there has never been lead upstream. And the state is perfectly on board with this. And we have the potential to save up to $3 million. So that is the other reason is that we want to be able to best use our financial resources where it's most appropriate. And if we don't have to replace those lines, we want to be able to have that flexibility to not have to replace them. So that is why we are recommending the changes to the ordinance that we have put forward and in the packet. One of the things that we want to make sure that we make very, very clear is that this does not in any way, shape, or form reduce public health protections. We are going to be very conservative. If we are not positive that there was never lead upstream, those will still be considered galvanized requiring replacement. And it's not going to slow down our investigations. In fact, we anticipate we will be done with all of our investigations this year.
Oh, good.
So that is great news. Yes, it is. And it would be even better news if we could find out about whether or not we're going to get federal funding, but we still don't know. So we will find out hopefully soon.
Good. Councilmember Lawson, do you have any questions?
Just a question, just in general. So since this is within the federal and state, are there any guidelines that you have to do any type of reporting to the state and to the feds on this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So the LCRR, which went into effect last November, we had to have an initial inventory that we submitted to them in November of 2020. 4. And then in 2025, what we have to do is we have to every year we have to update our inventory. So we are not required to actually have all of the service lines replaced until 2037. So they are giving us that timeline. Now, one of the complications that the feds did is they finished the LCRR, which is the lead and copper rule revisions, and just about the time that the ink was just about dry, they're like, you know what, we're not super happy with it. They went and they did the lead and copper rule improvements. Those do not go into effect until 2027. And so what's a part of that is additional reporting that we will have to do, as well as additional communication with customers if and when we are doing any kind of work on like our mains and it might disturb a lead line. So the great news again is we don't have a lot of lead out there. In fact, compared to a lot of other like Denver, we really don't even have a lot of galvanized. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's the only question I had. And I do, if we're moving forward to approve the ordinance, I approve it moving forward as well.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not a question. In terms of when we do have to replace those lines, it's obviously an intrusion on someone's property. So how has that gone?
So yeah, and we have had to do some replacements. Actually, we initially did some replacements. We did a handful of replacements of lead lines initially, and then now we're at a place where we're trying to actually schedule out and do it methodically. We have also had to do some emergency replacements of galvanized lines because of the fact that when you're out potholing, galvanized sometimes collapses on itself. So we've done emergency replacements. To your question, we actually have an agreement that homeowners have to sign. So that way and it's run through our legal, and it clarifies what our roles and responsibilities are as well as theirs. And then we do pre-construction coordination with them so that they understand, because it is an intrusion, we do actually have to our contractors have to enter their house to be able to do it. Yes.
And so out of the 98 lead lines, how many have been replaced?
Yep, you are. I had a feeling you were going to ask me this question. Out of the 98, there's 62 that still need to be, oh, nope, that's not true. I am telling you not the truth here. Hold on one second. I think all 98 still have to be replaced is what I am seeing here. Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't replaced any?
I think that's the numbers that I've got on here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and I apologize because I'm reading it off of here. And is it clear to me? Not necessarily.
There's been a little bit of a challenge, though, I believe, with the grant funding. Doesn't want us to get out there and do the work before we get the funding, I think is one.
Yeah, it was also some of it.
Oh,
So we've been struggling with the whole process.
so the grant funding says don't do the work until we give you the money. That's okay, lovely.
Yeah.
So
Just give us a
now,
little.
I will also point out, though, that there's not really any pending
Issues.
actual risk
Okay,
to people from a health and safety perspective, because we are continuing to manage the chemistry in the water to make sure we don't leach lead out of the pipes.
Okay.
There's potential risk, which is why the lead and copper rule is making us remove the lead, because of failures in other systems that we won't name necessarily, but where they didn't stay on top of the chemistry and lead got out of the pipes. The most famous of which was back east, but so there's so that's why we're
It's not an
happy about it.
emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a date by which we have to replace the lead. We're hoping the funding comes in. We're working to identify where all the replacements are required or needed. And then once the funding comes, we'll get out there and do the replacement.
Okay. And what is the deadline to have it done?
By 2037, they all have to be
Oh.
replaced. So we've got time. The other thing too is we've been communicating regularly with the community where this is occurring, which is Ward 1. And as we as we better define which lines absolutely have to be replaced and we have the full inventory, we're going to start communicating with the residents that need to have the lines replaced so that they understand when they're going to be replaced, so we can define that for them. And then anybody that wants to find out what kind of line they have, that is available online. And they can actually type in their address and find out what we've got in terms of the inventory.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much.
Chair, can I just ask just one other question? And I'm sorry, what's the plan B if you don't get the funding? What's your plan B?
We would come to council. We asked previously for some funding. We have some money in our budget. We're spending most of that on the investigative portion, quantification, classifying. But we would likely have to come to council and ask for additional budget to do replacements. We would, if we get the funding, we'll just immediately get out there and do the work. We're not gonna wait to get closer to the 2037 deadline. If the funding, for whatever reason, doesn't get approved, we would likely not come to council immediately. We would wait for the next administration federally to come into place to see if the funding opportunities come back. So we would just move a little more slowly. Ultimately, if we never got it, we would come to council and ask for money to comply with another unfunded mandate.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna do follow-up on that. Just, wouldn't it come out of capital? It's infrastructure.
It theoretically could come out of capital, but we would still,
Taxpayers not gonna pay for lead replacement when they don't have it in their area. Like that.
Well, the capital, though, our capital is funded from either rates or fees. So this takes fees off of the table, and this would be ratepayer money. I mean, theoretically,
I really like paying for an area that I have no responsibility over.
now theoretically, the way the ordinance is written is we could send letters in between to the property owners and say, you are required to replace this.
Or
We
it
know
could
it's-
come out of is it mostly in original Aurora?
Yes, it's
So it could-
original.
With the DDA, with the TIF monies, they could possibly pay for out of TIF, right?
We could look at that.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
haven't gone down that path yet, but that's a good point. We could look at some other funding sources like TIF, I guess, or something.
Okay.
So
Ultimately, it's a compliance issue for the utility.
Yeah.
So.
And the grant, I mean, do we feel confident that we'll get?
We had a lot of confidence in 2024. And now there's a lot of moving targets when it comes to federal funding.
Okay. Councilmember Lawson, are you hearing anything?
I'm not, the reason why I'm just focused on asking you guys a lot about the grant funding is just because it's a lot of that's being targeted and for reasons you probably have heard on television. So, I was just wondering what the plan B is in case you don't get the grant funding. I think there has to be another plan of action just in case. So.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything. I think you guys, I'm hoping that you'll get it. The reason I'm asking about a grant funding is because there's a lot of moving targets on there, but just curious on that note, what the plan B would be.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Really good point, Councilmember Lawson.
our plan B, to be clear, would be to push in the next administration to get funding recreated. The state essentially has said, yeah, we've approved your opportunity to receive funding. They're just waiting for it to come from the feds, which is the problem. But so you wouldn't see us show up very soon to request TIF or ratepayer money or other funding sources. We will pursue the federal grant money over the next number of years if we need to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
didn't think we were going to have all this discussion.
I actually knew you were, and that's why I brought these in case.
I know you're always prepared. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I just couldn't read what it was saying. So there we have that.
Okay, great, very good. Our next topic is the water conservation. Tim York.
Is me. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
So I have the next two
Yeah.
items. This works. Yeah, it worked. So the first one is a kind of a report out of the water conservation ordinance that passed in 2022. We were asked to kind of provide a recap of things as they started to happen. So we've been able to collect some data, and we're continuing to collect data so we can continue to report back on how things are going. So just a recap of the ordinance in past 2022. It was effective for site plan submitted on or after October 1st of 2022. So any site plan that was submitted for new or redevelopment before that was kind of grandfathered into the existing requirements. The main kind of prohibitions: non-functional turf in non-residential development, front yard turf in residential development, an added kind of limit on backyards. We already had a 45% max. This added 500 square feet, ornamental water features. There was also some language in there on irrigation. So no spray irrigation on curbside landscape areas between the curb and sidewalk, medians, all of those areas where we keep irrigating the street and it does not keep growing. So got that out of being able to happen. So where we've been able to collect some data, one of the things we were asked to do was to kind of report back on who's doing what, who else is kind of doing something similar. Interestingly enough, in 2024 and 2025, there have been some state bills that have passed that kind of followed our lead, which was kind of cool. They targeted everything except residential development. So the two state bills are for non-functional turf outside of residential. There is some very loose language in the 25 bill about residential development, but it doesn't really say anything or have any teeth. So I reached out to kind of our network of other municipalities and utilities that have the ability to do codes like this. The first thing we asked is, do you have a landscape code or ordinance limiting non-functional turf? You can see the ones that said yes, no. What's interesting is, for the most part, they're either yes, we already have it, or no, but we're developing one, partly because the state said you had to,
Right.
right? So they're doing it because they're told, but it's still coming along.
Were we the first?
Yes.
We were the first, yeah.
So then I asked, so if you have an existing code or ordinance, does it limit residential front yard, high water use turf? 50% said yes. So half the people still weren't impacting residential front yards. Were. How much turf is allowed, if any? Again, 50-50, 50% or less of the front yard, greater than 50%. If it's greater than 50%, I don't know what they're really regulating. Some people say that they are restricting front yard turf, but still allowing a substantial amount of it. Does it limit or prohibit non-functional turf in non-residential areas? So again, this aligns with the state bills. Everybody who has a existing ordinance or code, for the most part, is including non-functional turf in non-residential areas, with just a little bit who aren't. Again, how much turf is allowed, and the bottom one is the big one. So they do not, 75% do not allow non-functional turf in non-residential development, which is in line with what our code says. Will it limit new residential front yard turf? This one was interesting because the state requirements. So this is, you don't currently have one, but you are developing one kind of because you were told you have to. Most of them are saying they are going to limit front yard residential turf, even though the state bill doesn't. For the record, the state bill says you have to limit it, but it doesn't say by how much. So you can say, we're going to limit it to 95%. And technically that meets the state requirement. Will it prohibit non-functional, non-residential turf? Everybody says yes. Again, they have to. So this is kind of my favorite slide. So what we wanted to understand was who is meeting the rules of the ordinance because they chose to.
Oh.
So if we look at 2023, which was the first year of development after the ordinance passed, 24, 25, what you see is a continued increase of single-family detached, so your normal production homes, abiding by the ordinance, even though they don't have to. So in 2025, for example, this changed a little bit after I put it together. I think this shows 54%. 52% of all new single-family homes built in Aurora in 2025 met the ordinance. Zero front yards, no turf in the front yard. Only 2 of them did it because they had to. So the rest did it because they chose to, which is really exciting to see. Again, it's early on the water savings data side of things, but I tried doing what I could. One of the challenges is, having water use data after it's been built and installed. So I can't use all those homes that were built in 2025 because we don't have 2026 water data. A lot of times we won't even have a full 2025 set of water data. So I looked at the ones built in 2023. And how I broke out the data was if the annual outdoor use, so we take out the winter quarter average, which is generally how we separate indoor and outdoor use, was kind of in this weird outlier kind of data set. So then we pulled them out. So if it was really, really, really low, we knew that they hadn't started irrigating yet. There's no point using their data. The ones that were more interesting is if their use was really high, so over 100,000 gallons, I actually went in, used those addresses, looked at our AMI data. And what I wanted to understand was, is it because they were irrigating or because they had a leak or some sort of other outlier? If I was able to deem that it was some other issue that was driving that, I removed them as well so that we didn't have these, very low and very high use on either end. And what the result was is that on a per unit basis, homes with a water-wise front yard had 36% less outdoor demand.
Okay. I have a question though. Okay, these are homes built in 2023.
Yep.
But they never had turf to begin with, right?
Well, so what I'm comparing is the ones that had turf, the ones in 2023 that did install turf versus the ones in 2023 that didn't install turf.
Okay.
Because a lot of what's still being built is grandfathered in.
Oh, right.
So that's why
Okay.
it takes time for these things to kind of catch up from a development perspective. So we saw a bunch of homes in 2023 that had turf front yards, and then we had those voluntary ones that reserved. So that's what I'm comparing in that 36% less number. The ones that chose to do the xeric front yard tended to have a 36% less outdoor water use than those with the turf front yard. And there's a caveat this, there's still a lot of unknowns. Like some of the things you don't know when you're looking at the data is, what do they do in the backyard? What did they install? So those are things over time we'll be able to learn more and more. But I think that number is pretty awesome and pretty promising.
Councilmember Lawson, any questions?
Just a question on the, and I forgot the mandate that jurisdictions have to follow on this. What was the year that they have to follow that? And the reason why I'm asking that is when you go around, and I'm not talking about Aurora, you go around to other jurisdictions, I see lots of luscious green grass. So can you just tell me when the mandate for because I know the state did the mandate, but for the jurisdiction, I mean, when does that have to be followed by all jurisdictions?
Yeah, so House Bill 24-005, which was the first one, had a start date of January 1st, 2026. So that just started. And what it said was they have to develop landscape codes that prohibit non-functional grass in those non-residential areas. So those are just starting to come into play.
And what are the non-residential areas?
That'd be your commercial, industrial, common space and an HOA, medians, curbside landscape. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, because I just wanted to know when that started and when do they have to, I'm not sorry, I just don't remember all the legislative stuff, but when do they have to be in compliance before action is taken? Again, not Aurora per se, but around in our surrounding areas that I go through, lots of luscious green grass in the commercial areas.
Yeah, there was a compliance requirement by January 1st of this year. And then in House Bill 25-1113, There was some other stuff added for 2028.
Okay,
From an enforcement perspective, that's a great question. I've been in a couple working groups. That for the 24-005 implementation and trying to help develop, things for other municipalities and utilities. And that's one of the big questions is who's going to enforce it and what's that going to look like? As you pointed out, luckily for us, we have our own code and ordinance that takes care of it, and we're the ones enforcing it.
And this is for new development. So any areas that had medians done or open space obviously are exempt.
Yeah, so ours is new and redevelopment.
Right.
But yeah, if it's not changing, then.
okay, so a commercial area, just for clarification, so a commercial area that I see in another jurisdiction, if they're already been there and they don't have to follow this, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's probably why I see a lot of the green in those areas, so.
And I know you like it, Councilmember Lawson.
Don't say that. Oh, gosh, you're getting me.
Get you in trouble. Thank you. And your next topic?
Yep, let me share.
Yeah, while Tim's pulling that up, if I could add a little bit, the only thing that would drive some, well, other than doing the right thing, but the only other thing in writing that's out there that would cause a change for existing spaces, a number of utilities signed on to an MOU that went to the federal government, Bureau of Reclamation, where we committed to remove 30% of our non-functional turf. It doesn't have a done by date. It just says we commit to remove 30% of our non-functional turf within our service areas. So Denver Water signed on to that, Castle Rock, I think Pueblo, Colorado Springs. So there
Is that with the Colorado Compact?
that was associated with the compact
Oh, okay.
negotiations, yeah. So there is a commitment where we'll see those who signed on to that making changes. So there are some removals, replacements going on in most of the Front Range, large Front Range water providers service areas. The small water providers, Greenwood Village or Littleton, those did not sign on.
So who pays for that? I mean, if you're, the Colorado Compact is, you've got these jurisdictions that are agreeing to remove 30%. It's expensive to remove open space and convert it.
So most entities are using a form of rebate to do that, which is what we're doing.
Right.
The way our rebates work, and the presentation I gave at both of your ward meetings recently kind of talked about or alluded to the way the finances work, which is ratepayers are paying, but what that's offsetting is the need for ratepayers to go acquire new water supplies. So if we don't, because our water supplies are shrinking, existing supplies, the ratepayers are either going to have to pay to change and reduce demands or pay to go acquire new supplies to offset the losses in our existing supplies. So essentially what's going on is people who are choosing to take advantage of the rebates are lowering their demands, and we're using ratepayer money to pay for those rebate programs and avoid the cost of acquiring new supplies.
When you live in a metro district and an HOA and you pay dues and you pay taxes, and then they have to remove the non-functional turf. And if they don't get a rebate or they get a tiny rebate and not the full amount, guess who pays for it on top of everything else?
Yep.
Those taxpayers, I didn't get a reduction in Talents Reach when you guys gave a rebate to the Metro District. We did not see a reduction in our operating mill levy nor in our HOA dues. So
Yeah, and theoretically, because,
you need to put a clause that it goes back to the homeowners.
well, and theoretically, to their defense a little bit, when these conversions are done, our rebates will typically cover the materials costs. Is pretty safe, I would say. But a lot of the labor costs are not covered. Some might be by the rebate. So there is an increased cost right up front that would make sense where a mill levy or the cost from the Metro District would not go down immediately. What we think will happen over time is that those costs, those upfront costs won't be there. So unless other costs come in and hit the Metro District, the water bill will go down, capital costs won't be there. So theoretically, the cost should go down over time unless other costs are going up. But the cost of the landscaping, watering and maintenance, those kind of things should be lower in the future.
That was my point with my Metro District.
Yeah.
So where's our savings?
It hopefully shows up in a couple of years.
Sure. Okay.
All
Go
right,
ahead, Tim.
next, water shortage response plan. So we currently have the water management plan, which I think most people are aware of. The water shortage response plan is an update to the water management plan, including a renaming. One of the things we discussed when we were going through the process was Aurora Water has a lot of management plans that deal with water, and calling the water management plan, the water management plan just didn't make a ton of sense. And so we thought about what is the function of this document and updated the name to the water shortage response plan. Implemented kind of in conjunction with the water efficiency plan, which is currently going through an update as well. That's a state required plan. But the water efficiency plan is kind of our efficiency goals and activities. It's a 7-year plan. Water shortage response plan is does a couple things. For the conservation group, it's, how are we reacting or what are we implementing based off of our supply situation? So the big purpose really was to update it. We wanted to look at additional best practices. The consulting group brought back some ideas to us. We went through them, didn't mean we had to choose them, but we wanted to at least be able to look into some things that others might be doing that we weren't. Update the document with some changes in policies and regulations and really improve readability. If anybody read the existing water management plan with its 4 or 5 appendices, not a very easy document to get through. The new one is much prettier, easier to get through. So we added definitions of terms. We realized that the existing plan was lacking definitions for quite a few things. We wanted to make sure that was in there. There's an update to the water shortage stage determination. And I'll talk about all this stuff. Stage declaration and implementation. The enforcement was largely unchanged. There was a couple key things that did change, but not a whole lot there. The determination process, so ongoing, we have a water supply watch team made up of a bunch of people here at the utility. We meet quarterly if things are looking really, really good. And as John mentioned, they are not looking really, really good. So as we got into not good, but not, really, really not good, we ended up in 1. So stage 1, which is where we start meeting monthly, and we're developing or reviewing water supply, the situation, snowpack, reservoirs. And we also start looking at, are there other alternate short-term solutions? So that's where like the leases come in. Or in 2023, there was some blending that changed. We are currently into step 2 now, which means we will be meeting every other week to continue, looking at short-term options, if there are any, start determining water shortage stage and need for additional staff resources. As you can imagine, when we end up in a stage 1 drought restrictions, the community knows because PR lets them all know, and they start letting us know when things are going wrong. So we kind of need more staffing to be able to handle that and make sure that we're achieving the savings goals that we are shooting for. We're not in 3 yet, but 3 would be next. So 3 would be, when appropriate, that water supply watch team would provide a recommendation to Marshall through Alex for a drought stage declaration, and then that would come up to council. So if you looked at the existing water management plan, the methodology used for determining or at least guiding what level of restriction or what level of drought stage we would be in was solely based off of surface reservoir storage. When the IWMP2 was developed, this new formula was built in there that takes into account system storage contents, emergency reserve, annual demand, reliable supply. So it's a much more in-depth formula. And we needed to make sure that we were consistent across our documents. So we are now using this formula within the water shortage response plan as well. Please don't ask me to explain that full formula here because I didn't bring my paper that I brought last time I gave a presentation.
Well, I do have a question on it.
Yes.
So we did not have emergency reserve before calculated? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did not.
It, yeah, so while it was based just on surface storage, we did interpret that it gave us some flexibility on when we came to council to recommend shortage reduction. So while it wasn't as accurate or complex as what we're doing now, moving forward, what we're proposing, we did not necessarily the day we hit the trigger level show up at council and say, we need a stage 1 restriction.
Thanks, Marshall. I probably could have explained that a little bit. So the water shortage stage triggers in the water shortage response plan, more than 24 months would be normal, which is in the water shortage response plan. That's our permanent water conservation measures, 3 days per week, no water in between 10 and 6, still no waste of water, ponding, pooling, running off, all of those things that we enforce every single year. Stage 1 is between 19 and 24 months. Stage 2, 10 to 18. Stage 3, which is really that emergency condition, 9 months or less. What's another thing that's important to note is like stage 3 is, so the months of supply is guidance. So there's still a little bit of flexibility. For example, an emergency condition could happen. Hopefully it never does. But you could have a bunch of water in the mountains, but say you have a Rampart pipeline issue,
Oh.
you can't get it down. So technically you may have a bunch of water in storage, but you can't get it here. And so you could still ask for a stage 3 emergency condition. These are, kind of to help guide us and have some math to look back on, and then the discussions we have in the meetings, what are our other options? On the far right, the level of service goals, those were set as part of the IWMP process. How often we were, willing probably isn't the right word, but from a level of service, how often are we okay with being in each one of these? So the irrigation frequency, Marshall mentioned this earlier, really the big thing that changes as we get into heightened restrictions. Stage 1 would be 2 days per week maximum. Stage 2, 1 day per week maximum. Stage 3, no outdoor irrigation allowed at all because that is an emergency condition. Again, I hope we never end up there. I want to actually look to the front. So here's the kind of the big part of the water shortage response plan and the actions. Flying circle things. For the most part, this stuff stayed the same. There's a couple big changes. So we combined the multifamily, commercial, and other non-residential outdoor irrigation. So the idea here in the existing water management plan, we have some language for like private, commercial, industrial, multifamily types of places. But city large areas like parks and golf were kind of broken out on their own. Now they're all built in together. So they're all kind of treated the same. They all have the same requirements. And what it says is that their restrictions are the same as single family residential, unless they either have the large user variance, so they're in the variance program, or they have an individual water management plan.
And what is that?
A water management plan would be either a site specific or an organization specific plan on how they are going to use water efficiently. Maybe it includes reducing water use during times of drought. Parks does have one that we worked with them on. They have a water efficiency plan is what we called it. And that was developed, I want to say 2023, after a couple of years. The variance program is a program we've had since 2013. And what that program allows is for flexibility in the days per week, not the time of day. They get a monthly report card, if you will, almost like our Know Your Flow residential program. As long as they stay within their 100% or 110% of their efficiency level based off of their landscape and their water use, they can remain flexible with the days per week.
So I don't see how that's fair compared to residents because,
He's talking about how the variance normally works. If they have a
Oh.
variance plan here, they
yeah, but
would
if they have
still
a
be.
plan, they still don't have to
No. What they still have to reduce by 20%.
Yes.
right,
Yep.
but they can
They
still
just-
water more than 2 days a week.
Yes, but
Right, which I don't think is fair.
so the part of the reason for that, and I should let Tim
Okay.
explain it better.
Okay.
But so the way their irrigation systems are typically very large and more complex. And so trying to force the water in to just the same limited windows doesn't work. So we've focused on the volume. So the volume reduction is the same.
Okay,
It's the same that we're shooting
that
for
if
in
they did,
residential.
if they did
Yeah.
2 days. Okay.
So, yeah, so while they get to water over longer numbers of days because of system limitation.
Right, they're still,
They still have to come up with the same 20% reduction. In some ways, you could argue it's more restrictive on them because they have to show the 20% reduction. One of the challenges we have with single family, for example, what some people seem to think is a good idea is I'll stop watering that third day and I'll just increase my watering on the other 2 days, which is really kind of counterproductive to all of us, but
right.
it might not result in the 20% reduction. Did I?
Yep, perfect. Yep, exactly. And they will see that 20% reduction on their variance kind of monthly report card. And if they don't meet that, they get removed from the program.
Oh,
So it's not like you can just do whatever you want. If you don't meet the reduction, we remove you from the program and then you're stuck to the 2 days.
okay.
So
So
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it's even more restrictive, or I should say more controlled.
Yeah.
For the people in that program.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're fair.
Yes. Yeah,
and
we do
that
too.
was really the idea behind that, was to treat all of them the same. Because the previous one wasn't quite as fair. Another new addition in here, again, there's only a couple for new installations, for new landscapes, so new turf installations. By the time we get to stage one, it's no longer. We used to allow them to do it in stage one. Doesn't make a ton of sense. We're finally getting people to not put in a bunch of Kentucky bluegrass everywhere. If we're in a water shortage, we shouldn't let them put it in and water it as much as it takes an entire season just to get it established. And then the serving water at restaurants, the resolution that passed is also in here. So no restrictions. This is normal when we're saying, hey, we'd like you to just offer it when requested, serve only on request when we get to stage one, which is consistent with the resolution.
I have a couple questions on this
Yes.
slide. And Councilmember Lawson, feel free to, if you have questions also. On the water features operations, where it says stage one, not allowed.
Mhm.
So those are existing water features that were obviously exempted from the new ordinance. There's no distinction on small or large water feature. So somebody has a little teeny, with those little fountains in their front yard that literally hardly any water comes out of it. They're not allowed to keep it going for the bees and the fishes and the butterflies and all the ecosystem that needs that water.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard. I mean, you could go and say like, if it's smaller
You're gonna
than
kill all the little,
25 square feet.
Hopefully not.
well,
We're not, Mother Nature's doing it. We're not.
I know, but so we're in drought. There's no water coming down from
Yeah.
the sky.
Yeah.
And then you've got a little teeny water feature that is actually providing some water for, different species out there. And now they don't have their water either. I'm
So-
just saying, shouldn't there be some
so
sort of distinction on
here's-
what you mean by water feature?
Well, We could, it would get challenging on where to draw the line, how we're.
I guess it's enforcement.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
That's where we think we have a little more flexibility and I was gonna, Tim will probably talk about that some. I was gonna maybe add a little bit, but enforcement is an interesting space for us. So, right, we're not going to go around looking for those little individual teeny fountains. Now, where we might run into a challenge is if a neighbor calls
Yeah,
and reports somebody, we would probably have to call them and say, hey, technically that's not allowed.
right. And they won't
So-
even probably know until, yeah.
So enforcement gives us some flexibility in these spaces. We do have, for the first time this year, or the next time we go into drought restrictions, which we think will probably be this year, we have the new AMI meters too.
Oh, right.
So we're going to have to, we're having a lot of discussions internally with what we do or don't want to do with that data.
Yeah.
Because we can tell what people are doing.
Yeah.
Not to the point of a little
Yeah,
individual fountain, but
If they're watering
if they're
more,
watering
right.
3 days a week or 4 days a week, or if they're increasing their watering on the 2 days a week, we will now be able to tell.
Yeah, I know, big brother. Okay, I have another question and it's on, which I think makes no sense. Car washing at home. When you're in stage 2, not allowed, but yet you're allowed to top off your swimming pool. So let me just show you. I'm washing my car. I have a nozzle. It turns off. Water's not being wasted. I wash, then I go, scrub it down. Then it's time to rinse. I rinse. The water nozzle then goes off. The hose going into someone's big swimming pool is just coming out and waiting for it to top off. You're telling me that someone washing their car in their driveway is using more water than someone topping off a swimming pool? I think that's wrong.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if it would be more.
It's a more volume of water filling a pool. I had one in California.
No, you had asked, am I saying that washing the car is using more water? And I was saying, it's probably not more. There are other options on the car washing side of things.
I know
where
you
the
can go
water's
pay.
Recycled. Yeah.
Okay,
But
I'll just say,
it's a good,
for people that don't have a lot of money, that, are gonna want to wash their car so that they get rid of the corrosion that happens from, anything on the streets during the year. And so they don't rust out their car, and they should wash their car.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be allowed to wash their car.
Would you, and we can adjust this.
Yeah.
If we want, we could go into stage 2 and say not allowed on swimming pool filling. Would that?
Yeah, I think that would be more fair. I don't think they should be able to top off their swimming pool. But I also think people should be able to wash their car at home. Maybe it's more like you can only wash your car once a month, not
Well,
every day.
keep in mind, we've never gone into a stage 2,
Okay,
and we hope never to.
Okay.
If we go into a stage 2, we're in pretty
bad shape.
shape. So I think that's a really good point on the topping off swimming pools to say, no, not allowed in stage 2. The car washes, we've allowed one circumstance where people could still wash cars in a
That is
stage 2.
certified cars wash.
Yeah, and so how many of those are out there?
under the old certification program, there's not a ton. I think one of the things we have to figure out internally is, do we, by default, with the newer ones that are meeting the 75% recycle requirement, or even the ones previous that were 50%, do we just consider those as certified? Because it's new development. We've seen them through the engineering kind of
But
planning.
my point is, you're allowing a commercial car wash to use water during stage 2, but you can't wash your car at home. This is just wrong.
Yeah, now we could
I can put a
theoretically.
timing on, you can't wash it every day, or you
Well,
can't wash it once a week.
Or what about if we go into washing car at home? We could say something about with low, what do we want to call like the pressure washers that use very little water?
We would just call them pressure washers, and then we had a section that had a gallon per minute kind of requirement. I think it was 2 gallons a minute on a nozzle.
So we could do something like that.
Okay.
Which would probably be comparable to what we've done with the certified car washes, where we say allowed with use of pressure washer under these criteria, something like that.
I like
But
that.
but essentially it has the shut off, it
Yes,
is water efficient.
thank you.
So if we do that on washing
Good
cars at
my
home in
dad.
stage 2, and then we don't allow, we go to not allowed on the swimming pool topped off.
It looks like we have a question. Is it from Councilmember Lawson or someone else? Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just have a question. So, I'm fine with what Councilmember, Chair Bergan is proposing. However, where I'm at, I can't do any type of washing in my community, any type of that. So I do support the commercial washes because that's where I have to go. So I didn't know this. So they're not allowed in stage 3. So I will have to go to another jurisdiction to get my car washed, correct?
You can still, what it would do, we have,
Because I can't, in my community, we can't do any type of washing of vehicles at all. We don't even have that in our area where we could hook up a hose and do that. We would get fined. So I pay for detail.
so we
you know.
would still allow you could still go to a commercial car wash in stage 2 as
Well,
long
I'm not
as.
talking about stage 2 though, Marshall. So the only question I want to know, so in stage 3, I will have to go to like Parker, Lone Tree and get my car washed, correct?
Right, stage 3, we would be allowing no car washes. Now, keep in
Okay.
mind, if we're in stage 3,
Mhm.
we're like,
You're not worried about your car anymore.
we're
Well,
worried that we might not have water going inside
Well,
houses.
Oh,
If we're in stage 3, we're,
Well, I disagree with that because I have a black car. I do take care of my vehicle. So what I'm asking is if we get to stage 3, because mine is different than Councilmember Bergan, I can't do any of that. So I do go to detail. I do go to an actual detail to get my car washed and all of that in Aurora. So what I'm asking, if we reach stage
go to Lone
3
Tree.
restrictions, if we go to stage, I will have to go to a jurisdiction to get my car washed, correct?
if we're in stage 3, we're
Mhm.
probably not seeing any car washes open in the front range.
Well, I don't know about that, but
go to another state.
so will I can't even
No.
go to Colorado Springs? They would be in the same situation.
Colorado
I can't
Springs
even-
would be in a stage 3 too.
Hmm.
Stage 3 is like apocalyptic. I mean, stage 3 is we're down to
Well, we might be
less-
getting apocalyptic, and I may have to prepare to get my car washed because I have to. So I'm trying to plan. No, really, I'm not really being funny, but I'm really.
Yeah, no, stage 3 is bad. Stage 3 is what that's kind of the equivalent of where we were in 2002, where we were having, none of us in the utility were here at that time, but the utility was having to communicate that we don't even know if we can get to the end of the year and still have any water left. So it was. And other utilities and systems were in a similar place. So
Yeah.
we're doing everything we can to never be in stage 3.
Okay.
It's a good segue.
Which is why you see basically nothing allowed in stage 3 except for indoor essential water uses is all that's left in stage 3. And if we get there, you and I can commiserate together. All of us will be in mourning and.
Well, I guess I'll have to give my car a bird bath, just with the water.
Well, I'll be out there with our wet wipes,
Okay.
wiping off our cars, I think.
Non-flushable.
Councilmember Lawson, we won't even be able to shower.
Well, we did
We'll be
allow, we
stinking
do
a
allow
lot.
showers still, but we prioritized allowing showers over car washing.
Yeah.
So all outdoor water use would go away,
Let's hope that never happens.
which would not be ideal for our cars or our landscape or lots of other things. We hope to never get there.
Yes.
And we're planning, technically, if you paid attention earlier, it said we might get to a stage 3 once in how many decades?
100 years.
Oh,
Once every 100 years. So it's, again, it's kind of that it's terrible. Yeah. We don't ever want to be there. We're doing everything we can to avoid ever being there. That's part of why we're building Wild Horse Reservoir that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah.
Soon, is to avoid ever getting to a stage 3. But stage 2, we still allow car washing in water efficient car washes or water efficient homes or
Okay.
personal places. We'll make that
Probably move
adjustment.
on.
Cool. So I made notes. Sorry, I'm way over time.
This is why we do this, right? So you guys can.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, so I got those notes written down. We'll make those changes. Nothing on this one.
I have a question on this one.
Go for it.
And I get it. Like, I don't really have an issue with it. It's just, on the construction dust control concrete mix. So if you're not able to do concrete mix during stage 2 or obviously 3, there's no development happening. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's a problem. I'm just saying basically it stops development. You can't be building when you can't mix concrete.
Yes.
Okay.
Stage 3, that would be
Yeah.
the situation.
And then 2, it's your discretion.
Stage 2, what we would try to do is say, hey, we
Maybe you can
recognize
build a
there's
house,
certain,
but you can't build a commercial building.
or maybe if you're so far along, you can finish what
Okay.
you've started. If you haven't started, please don't start.
Right. Okay.
That type of thing.
Gotcha.
So enforcement, Marshall kind of mentioned this. We do enforcement every year. What we change in the enforcement section was really just to give us more flexibility on how we can contact customers during enforcement. So don't have to go make a face-to-face contact at the door every time. We have a lot more opportunities now with different contact methods to reach out to customers. So we change the language just to add flexibility in there for us, which is better for the customer as well. The only change here is the violation remedy timeframes. The biggest thing we did was we changed or added commercially owned residential class. One of the issues we've been seeing in the past, 5 or 10 years, probably not that long, but really the last couple of years, is single family residential homes that are like, vacant rentals. And the owner or the property manager doesn't really seem to care that we stopped and gave them a violation notice. So we're going to treat them like we're treating all that. I mean, essentially it's a commercial happening, right? It's our commercial, we're losing my words here. Anyway, we treat them like commercial. They get 3 days. Residential single family gets 7 calendar days to make the repairs. Everybody else is 3 days. Surcharges, this hasn't changed. This was in the water management plan and in the rate code. Step for adoption, we went to CWAC last week. We are here today. I will make those changes. And then it would be support to go to study session.
Councilmember Lawson, are you good with moving it forward?
I'm good with moving it forward.
Very good. Thank you for answering all of our questions.
Well, thank you for the,
I was going to play the song Car Wash, but.
thank you for the feedback.
Yes.
One last question on this. We don't have to have a sponsor. Staff can move this forward.
That
and
sounds
you
good
guys
to
can
me.
vote on it. Okay. It's not universally popular, obviously, with any of us. Okay, we'll move
I
it
think the
forward.
experts should move it forward.
We are happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, Wild Horse.
Make sure I'm in the right meeting. Are there only three?
So it's going to be done by next year, right?
That's right. Yep. 6 months for completed construction.
You're in the.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in the right one.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm not. Yeah, and for some blood pressure medication before just kidding. Just kidding. It's not that bad. All right, let me do this. Okay, it's actually, so I'll try to whip through this. It's helpful that you both have been here for a while. So I'll be able to skip through some of the background information that's included in here. But is it? Okay. So talking about the integrated water master plan, which identified the need for storage, population, you guys are both very familiar with that. Both John and Tim got into this a little bit, right? The point of storage is it helps us take the timing of the yields and match them with the timing of when our demands hit the system. That's basically what this graph is showing. So you're both really familiar with that. Conservation, you're also very familiar with the outstanding conservation program that we have. I will say that if we had to head into this process and communicate with the EPA under any other situation, we would not be in as favorable as a situation as we are now, because we could just say, we're doing all the things and leading the industry in some areas. Reuse is also very helpful. The Colorado Water Plan points to not only conservation and reuse and storage, but reuse for us, as you're aware, our systems, and then now that we're looking at DPR, that's also very favorable for our permitting processes, storage. So the couple of things though, and Lawson, Councilmember Lawson, you may be a little less familiar with this, having not been on water policy lately, but just to highlight about water or about Wild Horse Reservoir. It is a project that is basically, John had talked a little bit about our emergency reserve and our ability to maintain that emergency reserve. Basically without Wild Horse as a system, we would start using our emergency reserve for everyday demands by about 2045. So what Wild Horse helps us do is have resiliency and reliability for our current and future customers through 2075. That's really what the project does. And especially in situations like more extensive droughts, some of the outages that Tim had talked about, all the things. So the goal and objective, that's basically what it is. Reliably be able to maintain that supply through 2075. Okay, so where we've been, I'm gonna dive into this a little bit. Councilmember Bergan, you've heard this kind of even in a little bit more length, but where we've been with this project. So we've had a partnership with Hartselle Springs Ranch up in Park County for a really long time. This map that you're looking at is actually a map of 3 reservoirs that they were contemplating building, and then they wanted to have a partnership with Aurora to fill it. And at the time when they were evaluating this, they were leaning towards Wild Horse Reservoir or Reservoir B, because the study that they had done showed that it was the least expensive, or that the acre foot cost was the least among the alternatives. And then Hartselle Springs Ranch got into some financial trouble. They were filing for bankruptcy, and they came to us and said, hey, actually, do you want to buy the land that we have under Reservoir B or Wild Horse Reservoir for what was a really, really good deal? We knew that we were going to need additional storage. We know that this area is really beneficial for storage. You'll see that Denver Water has 2 reservoirs up here. We have Spinny Mountain Reservoir up here. It's basically a flat spot that is very close to our Otero pipeline, right? That brings water from Arkansas and Colorado into the South Platte Basin. It's at a high elevation, so less evaporation. I think I talk about some of these other critical features a little bit later. But we were confident that that was, we were going to need storage and that this would be a good location for it generally. So one of the things I wanted to mention on this map though, what's unique about these 3 sites that's different than other reservoirs is that they are off channel. So what that means, so Antero, Spinney, 11 Mile reservoirs are on the South Platte River, right? So they're basically damming up the South Platte River and releasing water and what have you. These reservoirs would be fed by our Otero pipeline. So they're off channel, which has some pretty significant environmental benefits if you're looking at it from a permitting perspective. So in general, the project, some of the important kind of highlights to just keep in mind is that it uses existing water rights. We are not proposing any new water rights to fill this reservoir. It's supplied, as I mentioned, with Colorado Arkansas River. Through the process, we've landed on 95,000 acre feet is the storage volume that is the most appropriate. The reason that it is important also to be in that general location we're talking about is it doesn't require additional pumping to get to the city, right? We've pumped it through the Otero pipeline to that location, and then it flows by gravity. And so reliability in terms of where that emergency reserve is very important. So that's one of the criteria for it being in the South Platte River Basin, why that's important. And then, as I just mentioned, less evaporation because it's cooler and higher up there. No additional pumping is required. There's no threatened or endangered species on either of the B or D that we were looking at before, and I'll get into that in a minute. Off channel, as I mentioned, and then minimal wetlands. So this one is we'll talk a little bit about for the alternatives as well. So where we've been from kind of a timeline perspective, in a first integrated master plan, I believe you were both here when we did that in 2018. Yep. With the first round of that, confirmed what we already knew. We know we need storage. We already knew this is a good location for it generally. So we started working on preliminary design efforts to understand what that would look like, and having purchased that 3/4 of that original site. So then in 2020, Aurora Water applied to the BLM. And I know Councilmember Bergan, you're familiar with this, but Councilmember Lawson, in case we haven't talked about this in a while. So the reason that we applied to the BLM, that site, the BLM owns some property there, a couple of parcels, about 200 acres. They also own what's called split mineral estates. So even though the surface is owned by privately or by others, they own all of the mineral materials below the surface, which includes sands and gravels and oil and gas and all the things. So we will need to ask permission or authorization from them to use the land on the surface and to purchase the mineral materials that would be used to build the dam. So that's what that authorization was. And you'll see that the MOU for BLM didn't happen until 3 years later. And the reason for that is the BLM is not used to this type of project. As we were talking, that whole off-channel thing we were talking about, typically when reservoirs are on channel, they inundate a bunch of wetlands, which then requires authorization from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They're the ones who oversee that kind of aspect of authorization. And the BLM is more in the space of oil and gas and wind farms and things like that. And so this was a totally new project. They had to put in place a team, and they kind of went back and forth with the Corps of Engineers a while trying to ask the Corps to do it or to do this authorization or this evaluation. And the Corps said no. So there were several years in there. Meanwhile, we're starting to move forward on the design and understand what the configuration could look like, and then also land acquisitions for that area. We really had no idea what this process, like what this NEPA, for a lot of good reasons that I'll explain, but I guess we expected it to be a little more straightforward than it has been since the very beginning. Again, for a lot of reasons I'll explain. So anyway, started design, land acquisition, and then for the last couple of years, what we've been doing, so what the BLM has to do to authorize the project is they have to be able to say, yes, we agree, you need what you say you need, whatever your need is. So our need, we just talked about, is that we need a reliable water supply through 2075. They have to agree with the need. And then they have to say, are you meeting that need in the least impactful way possible for the things that we're looking at? So in order to do that, there's a ton of technical information that we have to put together to prove both of those things. And that's what we've been working on in this pre-NEPA process over the last couple of years. So this is kind of the process that we've been working through. So several years of pre-permitting process. So the other thing, so when they say, okay, we agree that you need this. And I will mention too, so in their process, they're looping in a dozen other agencies. So the EPA, CPW, Corps of Engineers, CDPHE, a dozen or so other folks are also reviewing the information to say, yes, we also agree you need what you say you need. And then once everybody agrees, okay, you need what you say you need, then the thing is to say, okay, are you meeting it in the least impactful way possible? So we go through a process of evaluating a bunch of alternatives to meet that need. So we looked at 20 plus options of ways to meet the need. And we ended up narrowing that down to 4 alternatives of things we would build to meet the need so that they compare them to see which one is the least impactful. And those were an enlargement of Spinning Mountain Reservoir, right? So which is a really common question, right? Why wouldn't you just increase the size of an existing reservoir? The proposed site, which is kind of you're seeing in the middle, Wild Horse South Reservoir, we'll talk more about that. And then a 4th option was, okay, what if you built a smaller version of Wild Horse Reservoir plus aquifer storage and recovery? So basically stored groundwater and that combination of things. So that's the alternative evaluation that we were going through. We also have to evaluate, what if we don't authorize your project? What are you going to do? And we'll talk about that a little bit. And I know we're over time, but I will do my best. So here are a number of things that we've learned in the last couple or a few years that are leading to kind of the last part of this. So under the original design for the proposed site, this is basically what it looked like. There was a big saddle dam. What we learned is that the south side of the site was basically on geology that is called evaporite geology. It basically disintegrates when water hits it. So then that led to us including a 7,200 foot long, 100-foot tall dam on the south side in order to avoid that geology. So that has changed since we started pursuing this site. The other one is that what we also came to learn is that that surface acreage that the BLM owns happens to be a high classification of visual to the BLM. So it's classified as a visually aesthetic, higher grade than other properties that they own. And what that means is that will require what's a land use plan amendment. So they have a land use plan for all of the properties that they own. And what that requires, it takes us back into the previous timelines. You know how NEPA used to be like, they have a new requirement that it's now 2 years. Now that's after your clock starts. But the land use plan amendment has its own set of timeframes, and that kicks us back into the previous version of timelines. So that is something we've learned actually pretty recently.
Why wasn't that identified by the BLM back in 2020,
Yeah, that's what.
whatever, 2020?
So exactly, it's a really good question. And so we got
They were like, yeah, we're good.
So we got a new PM about 8 months ago who has a lot of experience in this space. And we also started doing, we pushed forward the visual resources thing where you actually start looking at what those visual requirements are. And that's when that light.
Well, and it wasn't necessarily just the BLM, right?
Oh.
It was the cultural resource.
Oh, yeah, I haven't even gotten there yet.
component.
That's
So
a different
the
thing.
value in the visual landscape is tied to the cultural resources,
But we
right?
knew about that back then
It
too.
is and it's different. There's 2 areas, there's 2 ways that it's visually significant. So the BLM land use plan actually isn't directly tied to the cultural and the tribal thing, but there's another thing that where the tribals have what they consider a visual landscape, and they have certain landscapes that they hold in high regard. So they're different but similar, but both impactful in this location. And so the visual landscape for the cultural or for the tribes is important, but this particular area happens to be very significant to them for a lot of other reasons too. Also something that we have been learning more and more about as they have been diving into the information that we've captured about the site. So I will say the other thing that was an early on assumption, which we now know is not accurate, is Wild Horse South, or that Antelope Springs Reservoir D, does not require pumping to get into the reservoir. Originally on that Hartselle Springs evaluation of what is the least cost for the project sites, there was an assumption that you would have to pump from the Otero pipeline to get into it, right? And now we know there's enough pressure in that pipeline that it can feed it without pumping. So that's another thing that is a little new. Other few things that we've learned is some of the things that we talked about, the full extent of the NEPA process. It took us a year for them and the cooperating agencies to say, yes, we agree, you need what you are saying that you need. It took us 2 years to get our water supply system model vetted, approved. We finally, I think just yesterday, got final approval and documentation for support of that basis of our whole analysis. It took us a year long to evaluate and get down to the alternatives. And then I mentioned this already about the criteria. So this whole process, right, taking so much longer than any of us would expect or had hoped. And meanwhile, our property acquisitions folks, they're like, we know how to do property acquisition, and they're looking for answers. And we also have the same thing with design, right? They're moving the design forward. And then that's when we took a step back about a year ago to say, this is going in a different direction than we expected. So the complications with the changing regulatory landscape, the BLM is constantly questioning what they can do and how they can do it, is something else that has changed. So there's a lot that's been happening in this area. So here's where we are. What we're contemplating is withdrawing our SF-299 from the proposed action site and instead asking for just a materials purchase only for the Wild Horse South site. And here's why we're considering that. So there's no BLM right-of-way, so there'd be no land use plan amendment for Wild Horse South. Instead of 3 dams, now we would be down to 1 dam. It is taller, so it's not kind of a 1-to-1, but that's a major difference. There aren't a lot of wetlands on either of these sites relatively. As an example, for the Spinney enlargement, it was about 2,500 acres of wetlands would be inundated for that enlargement, to just give you a range of what the Corps of Engineers would be looking at. There are no threatened or endangered species on either site. There is a golden eagle nest that has been active over the last number of years on the Wild Horse site. The cultural importance we've come to learn is very significant on the Wild Horse site, still significant, potentially moderate if we avoid the quarry on the south site. Construction risk with 3 different dams on 3 different geologies, very high. Still construction risk. You're building a dam, construction risk is still something that we need to consider, and we have less geotechnical information, but as we work through that, that would decrease. So cost, it will cost us less to build this project. Not as much, when you look at 3 dams versus 1 dam, it's not as small as, or not as reduced as you would think, but it will cost less. The other major consideration is that on the south site, on the north site, we had an exemption from CDPHE's Reg 87 permitting process. And on the south side, we do not have that exemption, even though there are less and less quality wetlands. And it's because of when we asked, or when we got it authorized under a previous federal certification process ahead of the legislation being put in place for the proposed action site, which we did not do for the southern site because we thought that it wasn't as viable. So we would have to go through the brand new Reg 87 CDPHE process.
How long does that take?
So they have 2 years. They have 2 years. And the thing that I just most recently learned is that they have written the legislation in such a way to build themselves in a pre-NEPA process. But they've also written in there that they will rely on federal permitting processes that have been put together. So my strong hope is that we can say, here's the alternatives analysis that's been done. Here's the goal and objectives report and all of the demands that have been done that have had CDPHE involvement. And if they were to say, yes, those two are fine, which they should, then the 2-year clock would start. So depending on where the CDPHE lands, and again, we've done so much work in terms of putting together information that I would be hopeful that 2 years still isn't even necessary, but they have it, they would probably take it. And then we would see a reduction in permitting timeline. The other note
Of the EIS versus EA.
because of the EIS versus the EA. I will say, and we'll, at the next slide, sorry, I'm going so over, but at the next slide, we'll look at that. We still need to understand if there is a requirement to work with the feds for that materials purchase. I'll talk about that. But yes, but that is the major difference is it's not only just the EA versus EIS, but it's mainly the land use plan amendment. This is what kicks us into that space. And the other piece is the back end stuff that happens with right-of-way authorization. So us actually getting access to the right-of-way is after the EIS process. And then the other thing is the National Historic Preservation Act is kicked in with an EIS, which means that there's extensive mitigation that has to be done as a part of the authorization process, which on the proposed action site would take a very long time. The downside of the south site, there are a few, we're still trying to determine out how many permanent residents, because there's a lot of like structures out there that don't look like houses, and so we're not quite sure about them. But we do know that there's at least a few permanent residents that would be in the body of the reservoir that would have to be relocated. I will also say Lyle has done a phenomenal job on the proposed action site, having the people that he had worked with there, getting them into a very good spot in terms of being in a better space than they were before. But they, anyway, land acquisition is almost complete on the site. Half of the southern site is in a purchase agreement with Elk Mountain Cattle Company. And that was part of a longer plan anyway. It not as much to do with the site, but that's kind of in the works. We have a 30% design on Wild Horse, and then we're about a 5% design level for the south site. So this is what we've been wrestling with. So I do, one other thing I want to mention is, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Where am I? I think I talked through all of that. Oh, actually, the one thing I didn't talk about is the one other permitting process that is still required is the county 1041 process. So they've got a Park County 1041 process that they're currently in a moratorium, I think specifically for our project. They're moratorium because they're updating their 1041 rules and requirements. We're hoping to see a draft version of that coming out here shortly. I don't think this is the critical path, but it's certainly something that we're paying very close attention to and continuing to get support from and encourage support from the county. I will say that we're being very cognizant of the residents on the Wild Horse South site and wanting to make sure everyone is in the loop on what that communication might look like. Okay, and then the last thing that we've been contemplating, which is a little out there, but could be, I don't know. But on this map, you can see this is the boundary of the Wild Horse South Reservoir. And the lines are where federal mineral estates exist. So the areas that, and this kind of dark line along here is about where the purchase agreement land is. And so the areas that don't have hatches are privately owned mineral materials. And so the thought was, well, can we build the dam just using borrow pits from those areas and offsite quarries? Because there's a bunch of quarries in Fairplay for different types of rock. And what started out as let's just figure out what the numbers are, just so that we know, actually turned into something that was feasible. And so now we are working with the BLM to understand if it would be feasible for us to do private materials only and still construct the dam. They are in a process of thinking through that, because what we don't want to do is open the BLM and ourselves up to a vulnerability of not going after a federal authorization when we needed one. So we're trying to figure out if one is needed. And there's obviously a ton of advantages from a Park County revenue perspective in terms of the mineral materials or the materials. And it's a lot of truck trips, but it will save time. And as you are both aware, the saving time is definitely saving money. So definitely super quick. Our plan B option, if we don't get authorized from the BLM or the county or the state to move forward with this project, we would have to spend about $600 million to install a number of wells across the Aurora area to store water in, to pull out and use kind of like as a reservoir, but below ground reservoir. And it would cost us about $150 million per year to run that system, and it would only meet about half of our need. So we would still be running into our emergency reserve for regular demands by, I think it's 2050 or 2055.
Or we would have to change how much we grow.
Or we would have to reduce, yeah.
Are we not ever reconsidering Aurora Reservoir 2? Because I'm just trying to remember from history, that was only going to cost us, what, 10 million for the land? Something, 100 million? I can't remember.
Yeah, like 100 million for the land.
But how much are we in right now with the land acquisition and all the staff time, everything? How much have we spent?
So we will probably still need a storage bucket on the east. It
But how
serves a
much have we spent
completely
to
different
this
purpose.
date?
To this point,
Yeah, on Wild Horse.
well, my point before, we can tell you how much we've spent, but the point is we always needed both.
Okay.
So we always needed something up in this
I know,
area.
my point, and I get it, it's not anyone's fault here, but maybe we should have started that one. We'd at least maybe start to kind of have had a reservoir, maybe kind of
It
started.
wouldn't, because it has a different purpose, it wouldn't have addressed the issues. So it wouldn't have accomplished
It
the
would be
same
storage.
thing.
It would-
Right.
It would also still require a federal authorization.
Right.
So we would be in the same.
Yeah, I guess
spot
my
in the
question
work
is,
location.
had we done both at the same time, where would we be?
We would have spent twice as much money and time as we
But
have.
possibly have 2 reservoirs sooner than later.
Yeah, but the east, now what we've done, again, through the integrated planning process, is while we need a bucket on the east side, it's probably much smaller. And again, it functions very differently.
Yeah, I know.
So it wouldn't store this same water.
Right.
It's a
No, I know it's different water and it's not mountain water and it's got algae problems and.
Yes, so we don't need it as soon
Okay.
as we need this one.
The other thing that I will say is
That
that
doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen. but-
when you're,
Don't say that.
yeah, when
So
you're.
that's why I'm bringing up the other, because I'm like, is this even gonna happen?
Well, so you notice on the alternative non-action,
Yeah,
it doesn't include that East Reservoir bucket, because again, it's a different function for us.
The other thing that I'll just mention is that when we are going through all of this process to defend our need, there's a snapshot in time that is very important. Because when you start complicating it with other potentially authorized projects, then there's a lot of question on, do you still need this?
Right.
Because you don't know what this is going to do to help change your need. It's a massive sensitivity, and we have been very careful with a lot of things in terms of trying to keep them focused on, here's the system that we've presented in that 2-year-long process we went through to get the model approved and all those things. It would have been more complicated and taken more time to try to weed through that process for sure. It's a good question.
Okay, so in terms
Back
of
to your question of cost, so around $40 million is what has been spent today between land acquisition, some of the design costs or what have you.
and the cost that it would have cost to build it had all this not happened versus we're at $1 billion, build it,
We're over $1 billion.
or $1 billion.
But I would say that if, let's say we didn't have to do any federal, local, state permitting at all, and we could have started building it after our first integrated water master plan, it's
Like 300.
hundreds of millions of dollars less expensive.
So my point in saying all that, and it's not for, our department, it's for the federal government, the state government, that we have got to point this out in a timeline, in money spent, in staff time that have complicated the process to the point of being completely absurd, and fix it. Like federal government, fix it, state government, like this. Why are we burdened? We can't even build a damn reservoir because of all this, permitting and all these different agencies and 1041s and whatever.
We participated in federal legislation probably 8 years ago that was intended to streamline the federal processes, so the 2-year windows that Sarah talked about came out of that legislation. And what the federal agencies did was they said, okay, now we know we only have 2 years to go through the official process. We're going to front end load ahead of the process all of the other work. So it was intended to
speed it up
and make it more efficient.
But can I ask, is it really is it so much the federal or is it the state? Like I hear reservoirs move faster in other states than Colorado, like it in the South.
Yeah, so because of the cooperating agency process where state agencies are incorporated into the federal decision-making process, that could be the thing. The other thing that I've realized about practitioners is that everyone is addressing everything they do in a lens of, when I get sued and I have to sit on the stand, what will I say and how sure am I about the information that I'm putting on the table? And so there's a chance that from the environmental litigation component of what happens in this state, that it has gotten more complicated because the practitioners are afraid. So I think that's part of it.
They are working right now at a federal level because that threat of lawsuit is one of the biggest issues and part of the reason why it has made it much more cumbersome, right? And so one of the things that they're working on right now is that they're in a constant state. In fact, there was an article that just came out today that OMB is actually in the process now of reviewing the NEPA process and trying to figure out, actually how much everything costs, which is really good. But one of the things that they're trying to do is narrow that time frame where somebody can bring a lawsuit so that we don't end up in a situation like Denver Water had, where Gross Reservoir was already being built.
Yeah.
And then there was a lawsuit that basically put a stop to it. So You are 100% right. We have got, we are going to continue to stay engaged. And it's not just us, right? This NEPA process is definitely.
And for Council Lawson, so she chairs Pfizer, the Federal State Intergovernmental.
And she wanted to say something to it.
Yeah, well, I bring all this up because, Councilmember Lawson, you can talk to this, but we go every year to DC. I know water does so separately, but maybe this is something that could be brought up on the lobbying trip.
Yeah, and I guess my question is that, with the importance of this, and I might need to talk to Liz. I know you guys talked to Liz, but why, I guess, the questions, we've been going on this trip for a long period of time. And we meet with Bennett. I know you guys do too, but I just don't understand why this was never brought up in the things that we should talk about. And I do find that very interesting. I know you guys go on the trip as well. You guys probably talk to the same, our federal leadership for the cities, but this should have been something that we should have had on our list. I think it should be a priority that should be really emphasized at the state level and also at the federal level with whatever we need to do. And I just find that there's been some gap here in communication in terms of me being, because I've been the Pfizer chair for many, many years. And I just don't understand why this was just not something that we could have brought up to our delegation when, as Councilmember Bergan says, when we go on the trip or when we talk to our legislators or the governor or anything like that. I'm just astounded by this presentation. And what can we do to move forward so that I think Pfizer needs to take this up. I really do. So I don't know how you feel about that, but we probably need to have this on Pfizer as well.
We can do that. We did have priorities for federal streamlining. I'm trying to think.
Is that in the federal streamlining specific though? Because from what I'm remembering in the federal ones, is this the NEPA and all that stuff? Is that in that? I don't have the priorities up in front of me.
Yeah,
It is.
so
Okay.
It's in there. It's been in there. This is actually, the NEPA process was one of the primary focuses of that federal streamlining that we have been prioritizing at.
I know, Marshall, but no, not to interrupt or be rude. When we go to DC, I have never, Councilmember Bergan, maybe you can, the trips that you've been on, we have never brought this up to our delegation. I can guarantee you we haven't.
Yeah, and I think the point that Councilmember Lawson is making is, I know you guys also you have your lobbying and you probably lobby, but we could help.
Yeah.
It's just reinforcement that we're not, when we go with our, I-70 Piccadilly and whatever initiatives that we bring to the delegation, we should have been bringing this just to reemphasize.
And we can definitely make that change. There's been, historically, as we've talked about the two trips, there's been a long list. I'm not saying this is right.
Yeah.
Kind of the history of the discussions leading up to those has been, okay, what should water focus on and what should the other trip focus on? And we've separated those, not for any reason other than time limitations on what to focus on. So we can definitely cross over and have that conversation. I will tell you right now, one of our struggles is how much we're struggling with. How much do we want to focus on that right now? Because things seem to be starting to move. Now, we've been saying that for a few years.
But can we ask our delegation to write letters of support?
So we can absolutely.
Not to complicate it or get, muddy the waters, but just, and when we go, we can still do our other priorities. It doesn't have to take a half hour. We can literally 2 minutes of, this is really important. Congressman Crow, Senator Bennett, that this is a priority for the city of Aurora. can you help, how can you support us?
We can do that, and we just want to be careful, to your point, of how we write the letters of support to make it not come across that
We're angry.
we're angry at the BLM because and I'll tell you, we met, when was that? Last week? 2 weeks ago? The BLM is quite frustrated too, because they feel like they're not getting guidance and direction from the solicitor's office and potentially OMB or these other offices on how to interpret the broader guidance that's come out of the administration. So some of the frustration that we have, they share in. So we can work on trying to figure out how to craft communications that don't necessarily throw them under the bus, but
Right.
say we're very supportive of and interested in.
I know we're way over time, so, but can we just maybe look at doing something, whatever?
Yeah.
I would also just mention where I think we really are gonna need that help if we switch to the south site is at the state level.
Yeah, okay.
That
Okay.
will be really, really helpful.
Okay.
And
Well,
granted,
then I think that you need to emphasize that with Pfizer. I mean, I know you guys have a water, but some of this stuff that you guys have brought up, it's not really emphasized at Pfizer.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We do the letters of support for you guys like we did at the last meeting, but I just don't understand. We have a Pfizer committee. We need to, I think this is important. And especially if we need it at the state level, let's bring this up.
Yeah. And we have a pretty robust communications plan that we put together that has a pretty big emphasis in the space that Shawnee's team has developed.
Yeah.
In the near future.
And Councilmember Lawson, now as you know, now I'm sitting on Pfizer since we lost Kathy, but
Mhm.
For next week, because some of it also too is sequencing, and a lot of us is we are figuring out where we are. We wanted to make sure we talked water policy first, and we do have an intention to be able to go and I've already started talking to our state lobbyist to be able to get time with the governor and also our elected officials. And so ahead of that, definitely, I had an intention of talking to Pfizer probably next week. I was going to put it on the agenda so that way we could discuss that with you guys then, but I'm happy to bring together whatever information you want for FSIR next week.
Well, I think you guys need to preside that to me. I mean, to me, myself and Liz in the committee, because I don't know exactly everything that you need to do. So that's why Liz is kind of the interconnect with me. We talk about we have Pfizer this week, and then we have Pfizer, we have it every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
So,
okay, that's what I meant. The next one after that. Yep,
Yeah.
I do apologize.
So you need to kind of talk to her and then she engages with me. But also too, it's just, these relationships that we have or who we can get this. I think this is really important. I think it needs to be in the governor's ear as well.
Yep, absolutely.
We
We
agree.
really appreciate that. And the last real quick ask is executive committee on the 9th. Do we still want to ask about presenting to full council?
Oh,
Yeah, so what you're hearing today is a little bit of a shift, and it's a little bit, and this slide that's up now kind of highlights it. It's interesting what the track we had been on, which was much less state dependent, had been the proposed Wild Horse site and then using the Wild Horse South site, or at least a portion of it, as a quarry to support the proposed site. Now what we're doing and what's brand new today that we haven't really gotten out there before is we're proposing to shift. So the originally proposed Wild Horse site would become the quarry site, or at least a portion of it. And the old proposed quarry site would now become the proposed Wild Horse Reservoir site. So that's it's this shift that's making the state a higher level of importance. So that's brand new as of today. So that's why we hadn't brought some of this to Pfizer earlier, is we've had to sort through this alternatives evaluation on where to focus that discussion. So
So do you are you wanting to do this for study session?
We think exec, because the main thing would be, we're going to have to get into some property negotiations now on Wild Horse South.
Okay.
So
Do
the,
exec session?
yeah,
Okay.
under negotiations. So if you're okay with that, that's what we would be proposing.
Yeah. Are you okay, Councilmember Lawson?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Sorry,
you.
it's so long. The car wash.
Yeah.
My fault. So next meeting,
The 18th of February.
18th of February. We're so good. We're so good, Councilmember Lawson.
I'm good.
Okay.
If I could just mention, because I know there's quite a few people on this call. This was the initial communication. We do have a robust communication plan in terms of the county and county commissioners and things like that. And so we are going to be rolling that out. And so we can let that process happen if that makes sense. We've got quite a few things in the next few weeks that we're trying to keep everybody on the same page with. So
Anything else miscellaneous, Councilmember Lawson?
Nothing for me. I just wanted to let everyone know that, right now, even though the legislative session started, they're not actually starting committee meetings until February 3rd. So that's some time. I'm kind of glad that that's happening to kind of give us as Aurora time on these issues and maybe others to see where we're at on things. So just kind of wanted to give that information out to the Water Committee. And that's it for me.
Okay, next meeting is February 18th. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hmm.